Have you ever tried to pick up a new hobby? A few years ago, I decided that I was going to try my hand at photography. Now, I had zero experience, never taken a photo on anything other than a disposable camera or my phone. I didn't even know what any of the settings meant, but I was sure I was gonna figure it out. After a few failed, and I mean failed, attempts at teaching myself, I decided to go get an assist from my friend, someone who had been there before and knew what was going on. My friend wasn't a pro or anything, but he had taken a few classes in college and was able to show me the ropes. I was doing full-on photo shoots in no time. Just kidding. But I am able to take a decent picture of my family when we're on vacation. Starting something new was so exciting, even if I had no idea what I was doing. I'm Tim, and sometimes sharing Jesus can feel exactly like this. We're excited to do it, but we don't actually know how to start. The good news for us is there are people who have gone before us, and we could look to them for guidance. Let's look in the book of Hebrews to see what it really looks like to share Jesus. The book of Hebrews is near the end of the New Testament, and it was written to a group of believers who, in the face of a lot of life struggle and persecution, were considering going back to their old way of life. But the author encouraged them not to step back, but to move forward into the life God had for them. Let's pick up in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. It says, "Now faith is the reality of what is hoped for, the proof of what is not seen. For by this our ancestors were approved." Okay, I know we're just getting started, but let's pause here for a sec. So Christians talk a lot about having faith, right? But what is faith exactly? Here, the Bible gives us a definition. Faith is the reality of what is hoped for. That means that when you hope in something, your actions show it. You act in a certain way because you're sure that it's true, even if it hasn't happened yet. These verses tell us that when someone follows God, they are sure that He will do what He said He will, and they can act in confidence. And this is how it's always been, even before Jesus came to earth. From the moment that God promised He would send someone to save His people, God's people have acted with this steady confidence. That's what it means when it says that our ancestors were approved in this way. They were confident and had faith in God's promise to send Jesus. That's some big faith. Okay, now the rest of Hebrews 11 is sometimes called the Hall of Faith. Basically, a greatest hits of people who heard what God promised and acted a certain way because they believed it was true. From Noah building the ark, to Abraham leaving his home and just following where God said to go next, to Moses leading the Israelites out of Egypt, and many, many more examples. People had faith that God was going to do what He said, and they continue to put their faith in this promise of the one who would come one day and make everything that's been broken right again. And they acted accordingly. Let's see how the author of Hebrews wrapped up this list of faithful people. At the end of the chapter in verses 39 and 40, he wrote, "All these were approved through their faith, but they did not receive what was promised, since God had provided something better for us, so that they would not be made perfect without us." Whoa, did you catch that? So all of these people who had incredible faith in God's promise and lived out their faith in amazing ways, they never actually were around when Jesus died on the cross and rose again. That was years later. So the author was assuring the people reading this letter that those people long ago who died before Jesus came were approved or accepted by God. They had looked forward and put their faith in who was to come. That's Jesus. And this faith changed everything. So what about us? You know, those who came after Jesus died and rose again? We get something better. We don't have faith that something will happen, but that something has happened. We get to live in the reality that Jesus really did come to earth, really did rise from the dead, and really did change everything. And so just like these believers who lived before we did, and even before Jesus was on earth, we can live like this is true. And maybe you're like, okay, nice idea, but what does it look like? It's almost like the author of Hebrews knew his readers would ask the same question. He starts the very next chapter with the word therefore, which basically is like, okay, so here's what you do with all of that. Let's check it out. Therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every hindrance and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the pioneer and perfecter of our faith. For the joy that lay before him, he endured the cross, despising the shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Seriously, you guys, this is so good. The author of Hebrews wrote that because we have all these people and their examples of faith to look to. We can imitate them. We can look to these experts. And what did the experts do? They fought against things that kept them from God and walked towards things that brought them closer. They ran with endurance, meaning that they knew it would be hard, but they kept going and didn't give up. They didn't lose faith. But how did they do this? It's right there at the beginning of verse 2. They kept their eyes on Jesus. They reminded themselves over and over and over that this Savior was the one who would change everything and right every wrong. And he did this in the most unthinkable way, humbly dying on a cross and powerfully raising back to life. See, sharing Jesus isn't just about having straightforward conversations. That's definitely part of it, but it's also about having faith. When we believe that Jesus is who he says he is and did what he said he would, it changes how we move through the world. It changes how we speak and respond to people. It changes how we act. It changes everything about us, and people see that. If you want to know what sharing Jesus looks like, look to those who have gone before you. And if you haven't yet decided to follow Jesus, I'd encourage you to get curious. Ask a trusted friend or leader how they came to faith and what it looked like for them. When we have faith, our words, actions, and whole lives will look different. We'll stand out in the crowd by the way we carry ourselves with confidence. Not confidence in ourselves, but in the one we put our full hope and faith in, Jesus.